Hi everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel. So today I've made it back out to the woods, but I've done a lot of research to find this location and I'm pleased that I have. I've made it over to Thorndon Country Park here just outside Brentwood in Essex, and the autumn colours are absolutely fantastic. Even just a short walk from the car park, we're right into the thick of the trees, lovely sort of golden yellows, oranges and the dark browns as well of the trees and the leaves. It's absolutely fantastic. So finally found my location. Let's hopefully find a composition. So let's come along for the journey. My first composition set up here. As I was walking along the path, saw this younger tree in this little bit of a clearing, getting some of the light that we've got coming through from the cloud cover. But yeah, unfortunately we've got quite a bit of cloud cover today, which is causing a little bit of a muted light across the whole scene. But that's not too bad, because I think that's actually working to my advantage with this particular composition. Because behind this tree I've got a massive, absolutely massive holly bush. And because that's still dark green, it's lovely contrast between the sort of yellowy, greeny colours that are on the leaves of this little young tree and against the dark background. So I've got the camera set up on approximately 30mm, f4.5, ISO 100 and about approximately 1/8 of a second exposure, because I want to slightly underexpose this image because of creating that more of a contrasty image and mainly highlights the actual young tree here. So I've cropped in a bit using the zoom of the lens because there's some lovely detail in the ferns in the foreground here as well, focusing on the actual tree itself, and hopefully with that depth of field as well, pushing some of the detail in the background out, some of the immediate foreground, pushing that out as well, and mainly making the eye focus more on the actual tree, which is the main subject of this composition. Also framing it up so the tree itself is on the left hand side of the rule of thirds as well, so hopefully balancing that image really quite well. And yeah, first composition in the bag, just a short distance off the path, working out to be a really enjoyable shoot. So for the next composition, just cross back over the other side of the main path here, come off track and walk through the woods, because that's where the compositions are. They're never really on the actual footpath themselves. You've got to work your way and meander your way through the actual woods to actually come across the different compositions. So this one here, what I've actually got is with this branch curving around to this tree over here, creating lovely colours and depth within the actual image. So I've got the camera set up on 18mm, f3.5, ISO 100, and approximately, if I double check, a shutter speed of 1/25 of a second, because what I'm actually doing is focusing on some of the branches, some of the leaves that are approximately here in the image, and it's obviously creating a lovely sort of bokeh effect in the back of the image as well. But it's still at that aperture that you're still able to get a little bit of detail within the background, because I like that. I don't necessarily wanted an image with it completely sort of a complete sort of bokeh effect in the background. I love the fact that I've obviously got one of the silver birch trees here that you can still see the upright trunk of the tree, and then that obviously gives you that information of what the actual trees are in the background as well. But the main focus here is obviously on the leaves. And what I've been able to do with this one, or what I made sure I've done with this one, is manually focus. I've obviously used the autofocus, then obviously zoomed in using the 10x zoom on the back of the camera, switched over to manual focus, and then obviously then just made sure it's that crisp sharpness in the actual detail on the leaves here. Because what I don't want to do, and where I'm using such a shallow depth of field, I don't necessarily want it to be soft. I want it to be as sharp as possible, and hopefully if my eyes are working that well, using the back of the camera is being able to achieve that. But yeah, another image in the bag, something a little bit different than what I've done before, but again, obviously a great image to capture. So hopefully you enjoy it. So the next composition, walking along the path and come across this amazing canopy of lovely sort of yellows and oranges in the trees here. Absolutely fantastic. So what I've got here is two compositions I've set up. I've set up the camera in portrait orientation and taken a Pano image across this scene in front of me, but I've also taken it as a single image in a landscape orientation on the camera. And the reason why I've done both is because with the Pano image, I'm hoping to get more detail within the actual image, because I think that's what you actually want when you come to do woodland photography. You need the detail in some of the images and some of the compositions. Adds more. Because of obviously the crop sensor within this camera at 24 megapixel, taking just a single image in landscape orientation will give me some detail, don't get me wrong. However, taking sort of 4 or 5 images, I can't remember how many I took, but taking that across in a Pano image will give me more depth within the image and more detail that I'm able to sort of pull out and hopefully add to the final composition and final image. So it's always paying to sort of take maybe both compositions and work with it back in post-processing. But the composition I've actually got with the path sort of disappearing and sort of at a vanishing point in the foreground, but trying to get the camera as low as possible, slightly angled up at 18mm, so obviously can get some of the details in the canopy of the trees here as well. And sticking with the 18mm lens rather than swapping over to the 10 to 18mm on my vlogging camera, because of that wider angle at 10mm, it's going to create that sort of warped effect with the actual trees here, and I didn't really think that that would add anything to the image. Keeping it at 18mm still makes sure that I've obviously got vertical trees, because that's what they're growing like. And yeah, hopefully working out really well. A little bit of lovely detail as well in the foreground of the leaf litter here, adding a bit more depth to the actual image as well. So hopefully working out really interesting. And the settings that I've got for that is both in the portrait and for the Pano image and for the landscape image is f7.1, ISO 100 and approximately 8 at 1/8 of a second as my base image. I'm also bracketing each of the images one stop either side, just so I've got that detail to play with, because obviously where you've got the canopy of the trees, that's going to be very bright because obviously the sky behind, whereas obviously you've got some darkness and obviously the foreground as well. So yeah, just making sure that you capture all the detail when you're on location, so then when you're back in obviously the office processing the information, you've obviously got all of that to play with. Whether or not you need it, who knows, but at least you've got it and you're not thinking, I wish I would have had it when I was out there. Always a good tip to remember. Proved to be a fantastic location to come to, and what I've made sure I've done with this location is waited at least 2, 3, maybe even 4 weeks now, I can't remember, until I've actually come back out to the woodland, because as you've watched some of my previous vlogs when I've been out to searching for autumn this year, it's not really materialised that much, and I needed to sort of be that little bit of patience, little bit of perseverance as well, which are the two key elements when it comes to landscape photography. It's being patient and persevering, because it's being patient, waiting for the colours to develop, but persevering, returning to a location time and time again, checking how it's developing, and then really going there when the colours and the conditions are ideal for taking images, and they have been today. Yes, it's been a little bit overcast today, it's been a little bit drizzly, but what that's actually meant is worked in my favour. It's given a bit more of a muted light across the scenes. It's also made sure that there's less people out and about as well, because it's only crazy photographers that are actually out and about in these conditions. But hopefully you've enjoyed some of the images that I've captured today. Please make sure you give it a thumbs up, give it a comment as well, and I'll see you next time. Take care.